This is Rudkowski of WeAreChange.org here in Baltimore, Maryland, with what people are calling the Baltimore uprisings. I am joined here by Timothy Poole, who's a veteran journalist. He's worked for Fusion now. He's been here on the ground with me, getting shot at by the police and also dealing with the insane situation here. Now, Baltimore and everything that has been occurring here within the last few days is extremely complicated to understand. There's so many different facets. There's so many different variables. There's so many misleading news reports and biases being just thrown at you. But it's very hard to get a kind of overall, kind of larger picture of what's happening here. But Tim, how do you see everything here?
I think a good example of what happened. First, you had this report come out from the police, the credible threat report. Yep. Then you have another report showing the gang member saying that's not true. You're hearing the police saying that the other prisoner in the van with Freddie Gray was saying that Freddie Gray was attempting to hurt himself, and now a report from this man saying that's not true. So there's just so much conflicting information. I mean, we actually spoke with a gang member who said, nobody called us up and told us to go out and, fuck shit up, using his words, and that this had nothing to do with the gang. So it's really difficult to understand. It's because, first of all, in a breaking news situation, it's hard to know what's causing all of this and who's right and who's wrong, and the facts are all up in the air until we have an opportunity to actually sift through everything.
But what I find interesting is many people who have different kind of approaches to reporting on this will take one side and just run with it. And when they do that, they kind of galvanize an audience who already has those preconceived notions. And you see a lot of kind of biased kind of reporting of what's on the ground here. You see a lot of people just calling these people thugs and looters. And then you see a lot of people here just highlighting the issues of how peaceful and community building. But in reality, the truth is kind of in the middle, where you have both of that, where we're here reporting, yes, cops are also shooting at us, but there's also people here who are threatening to beat the crap out of us for being white or for filming them violating the law as well. At the same time, there's also amazing people in the community here who are trying to get everyone home before the curfew, making sure no one gets arrested, doing community building, bringing the community together to help each other out, to build a solid nonviolent movement. So you have those kind of conflicting reports. One side just calling these guys looters, another side saying, no, these guys are actually starting a new movement. That's very important. How do you see the conjecture of everything that's kind of developing here as we're getting all this news?
It's the biggest bummer, man.
Yeah.
You've got pigs and you got thugs. You got one side saying they're all pigs, one side saying they're all thugs, and it's just a bummer that the first instinct everyone has is I hate you, and it really comes down to people want to hear the things that it's their bias. They want to hear the things that they already believe, and it's tough because I think bias isn't bad, but the inability to recognize your bias is bad. So, we might have a lot of experiences where we had a negative experience with rioters or a negative experience with police, but we always have to stop and say, but let's take the situation for what it is, right? Even if you believe that one group, whichever group it is mostly bad, you still got to recognize the individual situation and try and recognize the individual person. It's tough, but we don't do that. Most people don't do that. So instead, it's just, you've got guys back over where we're standing here, where we're standing, they were throwing rocks, and you've got police shooting back, and you've got police shooting at us. So it's we have this bad experience, so now we're pissed, and that's going to affect how we see the world. It's a challenge, man.
Yeah.
How do we get to the point where we don't throw rocks and we don't shoot at each other? That's the big challenge.
And how do we see the larger picture of everything and not just paint one human being as the whole crowd, not just one person throwing rocks as the whole crowd, not just one officer aiming at us as all of the police officers? Because one thing I also find is whenever you do take a very strong point on one position, on one issue, you galvanize a lot of audience to come your way, you galvanize a lot of comments, you galvanize a lot of likes, and that's what you see media organizations kind of dividing and conquering, putting up these sides to, against each other. And when they do that, they get more clicks, they get more viewership, and with that divide and conquer, that's how they kind of generate the kind of breaking news story, as we see on CNN every 20 minutes. It's a breaking news story, yeah. But that's all bullcrap, and it's all about just generating an audience and being sensational and not getting the larger picture of everything. Now, coming to just the Freddie Gray situation. Personally, from the evidence that I've seen, I think it's very compelling to think that there was a nickel ride that happened to Freddie Gray. If people don't know what a nickel ride is, it's when police officers specifically put somebody in the back of a van, hog-tie them, and then ride extremely dangerous and extremely fast and make really fast stops so the person in the back get hurt. That's what I personally think, after looking at all the conflicting reports, that's the most kind of conveying kind of information. We still don't know the full story. We can't say that for 100% fact, but to me, especially with the police changing their story and saying, okay, now there was 4 stops. Okay, there may be 5 stops. Okay, there's maybe some camera here. Okay, we're not going to release the footage. That's kind of where I'm kind of leaning towards. But again, no definitive information can be said because the evidence is not there.
Well, look, man, Walter Scott got shot and killed. All on video. They indict the officer. We didn't see any rioting. Here's a guy who was killed in cold blood. He was running away, he was sluggish, slow, and what did the cop do? He just pulled out his gun, pop, 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 taking him down. We didn't see people in the streets with rocks, lighting fires, because, first of all, there's a camera showing us what happened, and there was quick action by the government to hold this officer accountable. Now we have a situation where there's no camera evidence. We don't know what happened. We see them dragging a limp man into a van, and we're asking, why don't we have cameras in there? But now this guy is dead, and people are angry because they don't know. That's the biggest challenge. People here don't know what happened. They're angry. They want to see justice. They want to see someone held accountable for this man's death. If these officers are innocent, why don't they use more? Why don't we have camera footage?
Yeah.
Why wasn't the camera in the van?
Yeah.
And if they aren't, well, then it makes sense why there's no footage of the van, but we really don't know.
Well, according to the police, the camera in the van was not working, which kind of brings up the larger point. What everyone's kind of in the government and in the media kind of pushing is video cameras will actually change this. But as we know, just like from this situation, there was a video camera, but it was supposedly turned off. Officers will have that authority to turn off the video cameras and only use it when it benefits them. Of course, that's what people do when they have that power, and it's not fully transparent. So I don't think that's a solution as well.
Here's the thing, man. The good cops, who we pretty much don't need to film, they're going to keep those cameras rolling no matter what's going on. They're the good cops. The bad cops, the ones we want to film, well, they're bad cops, right? It stands to reason that the bad cops will just turn the camera off. So what we really need is we need people out in the streets with cell phone cameras. We need people who aren't afraid to stand up and film. Look, we saw a video come out recently where a cop grabbed a woman's phone and smashed it. That's terrible. But someone else filmed it happening, right? So now we saw it happen. So people with cell phone cameras doing live streaming, recording, and sharing that is going to be what it takes to have those held accountable who need to be held accountable.
And the more of us that film, the more truth we will bring, and it won't be stopped because there's so many of us just shining that light on that darkness, and we're seeing a lot of darkness, but also we're seeing this kind of riot be unlike any other riot before, similar to kind of Ferguson, but right now there's so many video cameras, there's so many different angles, there's so much accountability that it's even with the biases, you still get a full picture of everything that's happening, which is important.
The problem with surveillance is that the idea is one special interest, one private organization, one government controls all that information. So we need to use what's called surveillance. That's where no one can control the flow. And that means when someone tries to do something wrong, everyone else is filming. And there's no special group, there's no individual who's going to be able to hide that footage. With surveillance, if something benefits the special organization or the government, then they're going to show that footage. If it doesn't, oh, the camera was broken.
There's also a very interesting argument developing kind of around everybody when it comes to riots. Many people are saying without these kind of riots, no one would have known about Freddie Gray. No one would have known about all the other deaths that are happening, because if there is a death, just like we've seen with the police officer shooting the guy in the back when he was running away, because that officer was automatically held accountable, there was no rioting, there was no kind of outcry for justice. People are saying now that this rioting is kind of a voice for the voiceless. Now, of course, there's nothing in any way, shape justifying the destruction of private property, of beating up other people, of beating up other journalists like we've seen here, and the horrible atrocities that happened here. But what do you think of the discussion that's happening now in the larger kind of media saying that we need riots because if we don't riot, we're not going to be heard?
We'll just look at the cold, hard facts. There's very few people who are going to say a riot is a good thing. Obviously, there's some people who are like, woo, let's go riot, and they have a fun time. Most people don't like that idea, don't like it happening. But we do have to accept the fact that we don't hear about a lot of these things. People don't react, they don't care, there's no justice. But when the people came out and actually caused some destruction, they caught everyone's attention. That's not saying that's a good thing, that's not saying, I think undoubtedly, I think it's definitely a bad thing. There's stores here, there's small businesses, there's just people who aren't making a lot of money just trying to sell pizza, who have just lost everything. But the problem is no one listens. And so what happens is people get angry, and so they say, I'm going to make you listen. And they come out and they set fires.
One activist made the argument here saying, you know, the broken windows could be fixed, but the broken, shattered lives can't be brought back in any way, shape, or form. And what we're kind of seeing is this kind of emotional reaction saying the system's racist, these police officers are racist, we're going to be just as racist as they are. And we're seeing this kind of emotional kind of backlash happening, which is not justified in any way, shape, or form, because violence and negativity only creates more violence, and it creates this big circle loop that we're all engulfed in, and it's very hard to make sense, and we don't even pledge to even know exactly what's happening here. We're just giving you what we're seeing in the kind of overall picture. Now, Tim here has been doing a lot of amazing reports for Fusion. Check him out on youtube.com/TimCast. His link will be in the annotation below right here, and also do not forget to subscribe to this YouTube channel. If you thought this video was helpful or insightful in any way, shape, or form, click the like button, and most importantly, thank you again so much for watching. Was that okay?
Yeah.
I didn't know how else to end it.
Where I was like,